George St. Pierre versus Luke Rockhold. George St. Pierre is the current UFC middleweight champion of the world, and he was also the greatest welterweight of all time. He was the welterweight champion. He defended that title 9 times, and he's currently on a 12-fight winning streak. He returned at UFC 217 to face a bigger man, a champion, Michael Bisping, and he defeated him. George St. Pierre is the GOAT. He's the greatest fighter of all time. He proved it by his rear naked choke over Michael Bisping in the 3rd round, and from everything he's done throughout his entire career. Luke Rockhold is the ex-UFC middleweight champion of the world, and he recently returned at UFC Fight Night 116 in the main event, and he fought the World Series of Fighting champion David Branch, and David's tapped to punches in the 2nd round. Luke Rockhold is also the ex-Strike Force champion, and he lost his title in UFC to Michael Bisping, and he's currently ranked really high. He is the ex-champ, and I just want to pose this fight for you guys, the fans. George St. Pierre versus Luke Rockhold. Now, Robert Whittaker is still out there. He's the interim champion, but Luke Rockhold is right up there. He's right after Whittaker, and Luke Rockhold is a towering 6'3". He would be huge in there against George St. Pierre, who's 5'10", and just beat a 6'2" opponent. Now, Luke Rockhold would only have a 1-inch reach advantage over George St. Pierre. George St. Pierre has a 76-inch reach, and Luke Rockhold has a 77-inch reach. Both these guys are black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but Luke Rockhold really excels at striking, and he's a great kickboxer, and he's able to utilize that in his fights. We all know how Luke Rockhold fights. We can just envision it. And he has 6 knockouts, but he also has 8 submissions. So he's really dangerous on the ground. And when he's able to submit his opponent, he's able to do it rather quickly in the 1st or the 2nd round and just shock everybody. And he's really powerful, and he's a really large middleweight. Now, George St. Pierre would be a smaller middleweight. He's the champion of the world. He's the greatest fighter of all time. He's a really intelligent fighter, and Luke Rockhold would have to be weary of that. Luke Rockhold is 33 years old, and George right now is 36 years old. So George would be a few years older than Luke Rockhold, but we really want to see, can George continue his reign? Can he defend this middleweight title, or is there something else he's going to do with it? Now, if you'd have to break this fight down, you'd have to think that Luke Rockhold might have a big advantage striking. Would George really want to get this fight down on the ground? Now, George says he always wants to take their opponent toward their weakest place. Now, I don't know where the weakest place would be against Luke Rockhold. Luke is pretty great everywhere, but I guess if you had to go with it, you'd have to think that George would want to take him down. George, his takedowns have been excellent, and he's able to keep top control once he usually has it. And I just think it'd be really interesting to see George St. Pierre on top of Luke Rockhold. You know, you don't usually see anyone dominating Luke Rockhold. He's usually able to dominate the fight from beginning to end. You got to knock Luke Rockhold out. So, could George knock Luke Rockhold out? That'd be another question. I think so. I think George would do it. You have to go with him. He's the greatest of all time. If you had to put your money down on one of these guys, you'd have to put it down on George, right? Peace out, guys. Love you all, and thanks for everything. It's been great.